Then you also have a prosecutor who ran on, I'm going to get Donald Trump, just like the prosecutor in Cheltenham was like, I'm going to go get Bill Cosby. Right? So we understand that this guy is getting railroaded, and we understand what it is to be railroaded by the system. And right is right and wrong is wrong. And this, at this particular time during an election year, is really, really telling. And by the way, if you're focusing on Trump, you're not paying attention to that cokehead you call a son.
Morning Joe with Joe Scarborough and John Heilemann had a pretty stunning conversation regarding Trump after he was convicted. Take a look here. This is clip number 1.
Was his reaction. He was asked, what's your relationship with God? He said, I do good with evangelicals. Asked about his prayer life. He says, people come to him and say, sir, I pray for you every night. Yeah. Proving an extraordinary ability to sound clueless after all these years on the most basic questions of faith. And what's your relationship with God? And talk about your prayer life are two of the most basic questions. Join us now. NBC News national affairs analyst John Heilemann. He's a partner and chief political columnist at Puck. I know he and his former partner Mark Halperin also asked Donald Trump some questions about faith in 2016. New Testament or Old Testament? And his answer was both. What's your favorite Bible verse? Equal. What's your favorite Bible verse? Oh, I don't want to talk. And David Brody at CBN asked him if God's forgiven him, and he said, well, I don't pray to God for forgiveness. I don't.
So I want to talk about this. So since Trump has gotten convicted, we've seen a lot of leftist media outlets. First, they all calling him a convicted felon. Sure. Convicted felon. Yeah, they pushing. Okay, and then secondly, they are, now you see here, he's trying to say like, oh, why are religious people voting for him? You agree with them, Shelley? Is this a reason for religious people not to vote for Trump?
I think religious people should vote for whoever the hell they want, just like any other American, number one. Number two, make no mistake in believing that Joe Scarborough and anyone on the left is really concerned about religious people's prayer life and Bible fellowship. They're not. This is all propaganda. This is all for them to trying to confuse people. And they are no more religious than the people that they claim or that they really don't hate, that they hate anyway. Right. They hate religious people. They hate conservatives. They certainly hate Trump. This is basically all a form of mockery. That's all they're doing.
Yeah.
No, I think they should be looking at his policies. If he would be making policies that would, I guess, protect religion in general, so that people will have voice. Religious people should have voice when it comes to education for their children, what their kids are being taught or not taught in schools, abortion. If depending on what his opinions are on these important topics that the religious people care about, that's what they should be looking at, not necessarily whether he knows all the Bible verses. Like, we're not picking a priest or a pope.
Yeah, I want to get your thoughts on it, particularly the convicted felon part, because of course he was found guilty, and he left us using this. He's a convicted felon, but recently on the Breakfast Club, they had I don't know if you guys saw it, and I didn't have the clip here. But Charlemagne had people calling in asking if they would continue to vote for Trump because he is convicted felon. And people were calling, yes, I'm going to vote for him. Yes. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's going to affect him in his campaign?
It's only going to make everything better for him, right? Because here's the gag. And again, I'm not one of these people that believes because he bought some damn gold sneakers and debuted them in my hometown, that's going to do anything. Or the fact that he got arrested or whatever you want to call it is the thing. Here's the gag. So let's talk about what it is, because anytime somebody says, well, he's a convict, what did they convict him of exactly, right? Okay, so as a business person, if you're trying to reconcile your books for whatever, everybody does certain things, right? The same way my accountant will write this particular thing off, or I don't own any of my clothing, the business bully does, right? That's some of the trickery that happens in this country when you live, and keep in mind, this country is a corporation as much as it is a land of the free. It's also the land of loopholes, right? Loopholes that he did not create. Now, here's what they did. They took a bunch of misdemeanors, right? Because he fudged this and fudged that. Cool, yeah, he did it. And they said, you know what? This is just the tip of the iceberg. And we know that these misdemeanors are past the statute of limitations, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to say that these are the tip of the iceberg of a big honking conspiracy where he probably did all this and then took the Elephant Man's bones and then Michael Jackson's moonwalking shoes. And then while we're at it, we also got, some of Barney's rump roast in there, but we got to get to the bottom of it. Can you prove any of that? No, we don't need to prove it. We just need to do this so we can turn these misdemeanors that have missed the statute of limitations and turn them into felonies to make him look bad. Last I checked, and I'm not trying to be funny, Yana, when I say this, but isn't it more of a Russia thing to use the government in order to get rid of your opponent? And if you can't kill him, you try to kill his credibility. If you can't kill his credibility, then you try to go after his money. Then you also have a prosecutor who ran on, I'm going to get Donald Trump, just like the prosecutor in Cheltenham was like, I'm going to go get Bill Cosby, right? Then you have other people who are literally not running on policy and saying, oh, you know the guy with the comb over, he's bad for you, but and that's what winds up happening. And so we understand that this guy is getting railroaded. And we understand what it is to be railroaded by the system. And the system has always had issues of fairness. But this is a situation where, and again, I'm not throwing a pity party for Donald Trump. He's a rich man. Let's not kid ourselves here. However, right is right and wrong is wrong. And this, at this particular time during an election year, is really, really telling. And by the way, if you're focusing on Trump, you're not paying attention to that cokehead you call a son.
Yeah.
Who has no experience with anything, but he's doing all these foreign deals. And wasn't his daddy the one who said, if you've got a piece of crack about the size of this, you're going to do 25 years. You're going to jail.
But now he forgot all about that.
That doesn't mean anything. And then they don't know where the coke in the White House came from.
Yeah, we know where it is. We know. There are polls out now that say more and more black men are leaving the Democrat Party. Why do you think that is? What's going on there with that?
The same reason so many black men are leaving the Democratic Party is why you saw a mass exodus of black men from the black church in the 80s and 90s, right? We understand that somebody's sitting there pandering to the masses, and we're like, hold up, no. Let's stop all the feelings. Let's deal with some facts. Let's deal with some tangibles. It's not enough for you to go get Cardi B right after she's had a fresh BBL and does the nene. It's not enough for you to play Despacito on your phone that you can barely work. We need something tangible. I saw a commercial yesterday. I could not make this up. Please Google this if you have nothing better to do. And the commercial had that typical voiceover black guy who I've never met, but he always sounds real.
This ain't one.
Hey, man, the Biden and Harris administration are taking a lot of flack and a lot of heat, talking about, what has they done for black people? Well, let's run it down. Let's run them receipts. And they put Ketanji Brown Jackson in the Supreme Court. How does that put food on my kid's table?
Thank you.
What is that? Symbolism does not work. Black men want tangibles. It's not about a feeling. It is about what have you done statistically. And again, I'm not a fan of the whole, I don't want to use the term, but let's just say it's morbid. And I'm not a fan of morbid and what happened in morbid. But if you go from 2017 through the end of 2019, I got to tell you, I made more money as an entrepreneur than I ever did in the history of my company during those times. Those are just the numbers, and every last one of my entrepreneur friends said the same thing. And so we understand that this is a hustle. They're going to smoke screen you, they're going to guilt trip you, and they're going to run not on policy, but, ooh, orange man bad, ooh, racism. And I'm like, there is racism. There are people who take advantage of systems. That's real. But the truth of the matter is, the racists are the people who are telling you they love you while they're bending you over.
Bending you over.
Screwing you and you're not getting an orgasm.
None.
I mean, and talk about tangibles. Now we have this whole issue with renters versus homeowners. According to a new study by the Federal Reserve, renters are in dire straits financially, while homeowners are continuing to reap the rewards of cheap pandemic money that left renters with nothing but inflation. In the raw numbers, the Fed reports finds that nearly 1 in 5 renters fell behind in their rent in the past year, while rents have soared 20% since the pandemic. Renters are more likely to not be able to pay the electric, water, or gas bill in the past month, and they report much higher rates of financial anxiety.
Right. It's affecting them economically, right? Typically, renters, the average view is that they're younger, they may be single, just starting out, and that's a place for that. But when you are renting for dear life, if you will, and your check is not keeping up with the costs that are increasing, even from the landlord side, then you're going to have a problem. There are homeowners, people who have stable jobs, who are still struggling because their paycheck is not keeping up with the pace of inflation, right? And in fact, inflation is eating much more of their check than they normally would. But to the point about black men, you asked, I'm sorry, leaving the Democrat Party. I think black men are leaving the Democrat Party, I think more so, yes. Well, we need to be careful. They're not necessarily signing up to be Republicans either. So Republicans are not necessarily, I don't think they are doing a good job of saying, this is what we offer and this is why, right? Now, I think it's good that they leave the Democrat Party. That's excellent. Black women are still hanging on to the government tit.
Yeah, and we're going to